So I usually don't like wasting people's time. So if you need this material ASAP, you can download it from my Gumroad. The link is in the description. You could buy me a coffee if you like, but it's totally up to you. You can download it for free. But if you want to get better at understanding these procedural materials and possibly make your own in the future, hang in there, because I put together this really neat video that I think explains a lot of concepts that you need to make this. Yeah, so without further ado, may I present to you Nacre material. Nacre naturally occurs inside shells and snail houses, and ever since I was a little child I've been fascinated by this material because it has all these cool marveling textures in it, has this cool rainbow sheen on the edge, which we're also going to recreate in this video. And yeah, so let's jump right in. What are we going to use? So basically, we're just creating masks to then plug into our main shader node. And the cool thing is, for most materials, we actually just need 3 masks. So for this one, we need the color, the roughness mask, and the bump or normal mask. So let me just quickly break down for you what this material consists of. So first of all, we're going to add an iridescent effect to the material. Then we're going to add a wave texture, scramble it with a little bit of distortion. Then we're going to add a little bit of details using another noise texture. And then we're going to just extract our refraction and our bump and normal map from that. And voila, this is our material. So let's jump right inside the node editor and see what this is all about. If you remember, the first thing we need to do is build ourselves a little iridescent shader, and that is actually really simple. We just have to add an input, and under input select this layer weight node. Okay, if we just quickly add an emission shader so that we can view these nodes a little bit more clearer and plug our facing into the color, we can see exactly what this does. So this is basically a mask for the faces that are facing the camera and those faces that are curving away from the camera. Really neat if you want to have kind of work with reflections, because everything that's camera related has usually something to do with reflections. Okay, now connect your principled shader backup and put this facing output into your base color. And now we have to add this sort of colorful rainbow to this. So the way we do this is just by going to converter and adding a color ramp node. And we're just going to place it in between those 2 nodes. And the way you do a rainbow is actually pretty easy. I used to do them by hand, but there is this little mode under RGB here. If you change it to HSL and leave it at near, you can quickly add a rainbow. As you can see here, if you add 2 colors in here, the program automatically calculates the colors in between, which is pretty cool. Of course, now you can experiment with this, add in your own colors, make it really crazy. But I'm just going to show you what I found is a little sweet spot which works well for this material. So what I did is I took this white pin here and pushed it a little bit toward pink, just a little bit, so you get a little bit of saturation here. Then I took the black one and made it white at first, and then made it this pale red color. Just push it straight down. Then I added another pin and made that this minty green up here. And you can see if you make it too green, it kind of wants to stick to the other color, so you just get a green ring. Make sure you push it a little bit towards blue, so you get that fall off to the pink marker, okay? And now you want to pinch this together here a little bit to get as little yellow as possible, but you obviously want to have it in there. But I found by looking at reference pictures that there is actually very little yellow in these nacre materials, so that's why I decided to do this. What we also could do to have a little bit more of control over this is go to add and color and add a hue saturation node to this. So what this allows us basically is to change the intensity of this by changing the saturation. But I'm just going to leave it at 1 for now. And yeah, this is our first map, guys. This is how fast this gets. And now we're going to create a wave texture and a roughness map. So now what we want to do is go under input and add a new texture coordinate node, and then under texture add a wave texture. It's usually way down here. And I'm going to use this object vector here because it allows me to add this material to any other geometry, and it usually fits right away. I don't have to worry about UV unwrapping this. It just works with the object itself, okay? So plug this into vector, and I'm going to, of course, reconnect my emission shader here so that we can actually see what's going on. And we got these rings here. So now what you want to put into this wave texture is 2 for scale, 20 for distortion, 5.5 for detail. We can leave detail scale at 1. Detail roughness you put to 0.4, and phase offset also to 0.4. And the last thing here, we can change this X coordinate to diagonal, okay? Gives us a little bit more of an interesting result, I think. Next up, we're going to add a mapping node under vector mapping, put it right after a wave texture. And here again, this is a little sweet spot I found that works with this material. So under location Y, you want to type in 0.28. Under X rotation, you want to type in 30 degrees, and under scale X you want to type in 2. Now we're going to add another texture. It's called the mousse graph texture. So now what you want to type in to this mousse graph texture: 10 for scale, 6 for detail, 1.8 for dimensions, and for nuclearity 1.5, okay? And you can already see what the mousse graph texture did to a wave texture. It basically created all this intricate detail, and that's just by stacking 2 textures together. So sometimes it's really that simple and you get a really unique and interesting result. So definitely experiment with that. So in order to preview this, we just have to crank up our metallic channel here inside our principal shader. Now we can connect our mousse graph texture to the roughness, and of course our shader to the material output. As you can see, we have really extreme high points on this map, meaning that everything that is black is basically 100% reflective, and everything that is white is 100% not reflective. So what we have to do now is just add a good old color ramp node on the converter color ramp and just put it in here. And you can already see a pattern in here. Every time we adjust values or just tweak something a little bit, we add a color ramp node. So what I did here was change these pins around because I want that bigger marveling texture here to stand out a little bit. So I gave that 100% reflection, brought it in a little bit. And then I took this white pin here, brought it also in a little, but made it a light gray like this. And you can really fine tune this to get a nice degree of reflectivity on this. And yeah, this is a roughness map. Okay, now so the last map we have to create is our bump map. And the way we do that is by adding another texture. And this time it's a very basic but also powerful one, the noise texture. And this time we're going to also branch off our original wave texture, okay? So we just plug our color output into our vector here. And again, click on scale and type in 1 for scale, 5 for detail, 0.4 for roughness, and 2 for distortion. And in order to convert this 2D noise texture into a bump map, we just have to add a node under vector called bump, okay? And now that's going to get a little bit tricky. We're going to select this node and hit Shift D to duplicate it. Now we take this vector output and plug it in to the height output of these bump maps, okay? And maybe just add a little reroute to this, you know, just for clarity purposes. And now what you want to do is take this output of the first bump node and plug it into our iridescent node setup, okay? To this little normal input, okay? And for the second one, just plug it into the normal input of our shader. And now we have surface detail, but this is obviously way too intense. So let's turn the strength down a little on this first node, hit in 0.5, and on this lower one, 0.1, and boom, there you have it, your Nacre material, totally procedural inside Blender. Of course, this is not the exact same material I showed you in the intro, because by using these color ramp nodes and by eyeballing it a little bit, it turns out different every time. And that's actually something I really encourage you to do. Just experiment with these nodes, try to come up with creative ways to use them. And yeah, it's not an exact science where you have to punch in every value exactly like in the tutorial. Just figure out the basic concept of it and then make it your own. And for those of you who want the exact same replica of the material, just click the link in the description and download it. You can use it for free, do whatever you like with it. And yeah, and also huge thanks to Bernard. He's a friend of mine and he helped me a lot with this shader. And just so you guys know what kind of person Bernard is, he exclusively works on a laptop, and every time I check in on him, it's like, hey Bernard, what are you working on? Oh, just a little side project, you know. What the... Yeah, so pretty crazy guy. Check out his website, link is in the description, and thank you for watching. Take care and stay creative. Bye. Okay guys, English?
Nacre.
German.
Felmut.
Why would you pronounce it that way?